Well, welcome everyone to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace and harmony. So that's what we've been doing. And in my travels, I ended up at Victor Wooten's Spirit of Music camp this year and was really delighted to meet and learn from a fabulous musician, educator, Penny Mealing. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it, Penny.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it was quite a Spirit of Music camp,
Yeah, absolutely.
as they all are. You can never underestimate Victor and what he comes up with all the different things to tickle your, knowledge base and what have you. And I remember you were talking, and maybe you were just talking with me, or maybe you were talking with some other people, but about you're retiring as an educator in Brooklyn, I think.
Yeah.
And some of the things you said, I just thought, wow, more people need to hear this.
Mm.
So thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated it. It's quite an honor to be asked. So thank you.
Well, think it's an honor to have you, giving us some of your wisdom after all these years. And now that you're just not too far into the retired status, I know it takes a while to figure things out, but I really hope it's going well and I've enjoyed it so far, so I hope you will too.
Yeah, I really have. I'm finding that how did I ever have time for anything before? I'm
Exactly.
finding, yeah, it's just a little crazy. So there's not enough hours in the day. So I'm doing a lot of things. I'm catching up. I'm catching up with my life and my, things that I'm interested in. I'm catching up. I'm doing me now.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
kind of
that's great.
a turn. Yeah.
I've heard that from other people who are retired. How did I ever have time to do anything?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
working 40, 50, whatever, however many hours a week doing something
Right.
else.
Right.
So I know we're going to get into some things, but I always am interested in just how music came into your life. And I don't know whether, you were 2 or 5 or 10, or whether it was an instrument, whether your family was kind of into music, whether you were a pioneer, whether it came a little later in life, whatever happened. But can you think about and tell us a little bit about how you may remember music came into your life and set you on this path as an musician and educator?
Yeah, sure. I remember exactly the day and the time it happened. I had always been from a family that was a church going family. And so we would always go to church every Sunday and go to choir practice. I was always in the youth choir or the young adult choir. And, but that was just a given. It wasn't something I thought about. It was just what we did. And then I got older. I was 16. And my older brother, had 2 children, and I was babysitting. Now, when I was younger, I listened to the things you listened to in the 70s, or 60s, the Jackson Five and Motown stuff, and, the Osmond Brothers and Sonny and Cher show and Ed Sullivan, things like that. That was what everybody listened to. We didn't have as many choices as there are now. So that's what I grew up with, except this one day, my brother was always into jazz, and I had to babysit one day, and the kids went to bed, and he had a reel to reel. That's how they used to record music or save their music back then, rather than a cassette or a DVD or a CD. And the reel to reel was set up somewhere, and he had some headphones on the side. And the I put on the headphones and I just pressed play. And what played was a saxophone player named Stanley Turrentine, very well known. And there was a song called Salt Song. Now, I don't know if you know the tune, but it's an instrumental tune, and it starts very lush and beautifully and strings and what have you. But then it goes into this double time feel of like a boom, dong, 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 dong. And it just struck me because I said, What was that? What just happened? I did not know music could do that.
Wow.
Used to hearing, pop, I want you back. Yes, I do now, and, I'm a little bit country, stuff like that. That was my norm. But when I heard, it wasn't just the saxophone playing, but it was the strings, the arrangement, and it was this Latin feel that came out of this jazz too. And I said, oh my God, look what music can do. And in that moment, I said, I have to get in there. I have to be part of that. I have to get some of that because look what it can do. My only experience before was listening to, music at church. Not that we were, that hardcore, but music at church and pop tunes. That was it. So that awakening, it really was an awakening when I was 16. And I said, what do I need to do to get there? And then I started, I went to a Quaker school. I got a scholarship through my church to go to Quaker school.
Where was this? I'm sorry, where did you grow
In
up?
Long Island. I'm from Long Island originally. I
Okay.
live in Brooklyn now, but I'm from Long Island.
Okay.
And so in this area called Glen Cove and Locust Valley, that's where I started in Glen Cove, but then we moved to Westbury and I went back to school in Locust Valley, which is where Friends Academy was. It's a Quaker school, so it's a private school, very expensive, but I did not have to pay for it. I somehow got a scholarship. And I started to be involved in school plays, musicals, things like that. And I loved it. And being a freshman and getting the lead in some of the plays, you know, made me think, oh, maybe this is something I can do. I never thought about singing. It's just something that you did. It just came naturally. I never studied at it. That's what you did. And so my first show was West Side Story. I got the Maria part.
I
And
love that
yeah.
story.
So,
Yeah.
and then we went, I love West Side to this day. I love it, probably because of that, that memory from 50 years ago. But that started me in a different genre. So musical theater was my thing. But I always had in the back of my head, wow, look what music can do. And then I still never studied. And then in our school, Friends Academy, it's kind of expected that you go to college. It's not like, I don't know, maybe I'll go to college. No, you go to college. And so I got into Berklee College of Music in Boston. And when I got there, though, I did not know what a whole note was. I didn't know anything. I got in, I don't know how, but I was in the vocal department and I said, I'm going to be in the music education department because, what you do is you teach. I have a niece who teaches, who's a assistant principal. So, it seemed, okay, that was secure. I'll go into that and I'll teach music. So that was always my goal. That was always my goal. So I got into Berklee. I started to study music, and my mind was blown. Oh my goodness, this is what it does. This is how you do this, and this is what this means. So I got a lot, but I was only at Berklee for about 2 years. Like so many other people, I dropped out to tour with a band.
Really?
We traveled locally all over the New England area and played. It was mostly a dance band. So myself and three horns and a rhythm section.
What you were singing? Were you playing an instrument too, or?
I did not. I studied in at Berklee. When you're in the music education department, you have to take classes so that you have an understanding of how everything works.
Uh,
So I could actually start somebody on every instrument, but it's up to them or someone else to take it further. So my screen keeps popping off. So I studied, different instruments and with the intention of being able to start somebody on it. But I was always a vocal major, always a vocal major. And their department, their vocal department back then wasn't so strong. I don't even remember who my voice teacher was, but the one thing I do remember is how much I started to understand theory and the theory of music and how things worked and why things sounded good and typical tools that musicians use to get through a song or to create a song or composition or arranging. So I learned a lot of that. But we were ready. My band was off and running. We traveled all over for a few years. And then I was going to leave the band. I don't know what happened, but it was sometimes it's time to go.
Hmm.
And so I think the band was breaking up. People were going elsewhere. And, but we were seen by this English woman, Julie Grant. She's an English singer. And she said, why don't you guys stay together and come on tour with me? I go all over the place.
Wow.
And so everybody thought, okay, this is a great idea. So let's do Julie Grant. So that's what we did. And I wound up being a background singer, which I was okay with. There was another girl who came on and we did background, and then the rest of the band just played with Julie Grant and toured for a bit. So that was how my music flow started. I didn't start by teaching.
Well, it is, uh, I would have been very happy to have had your musical beginnings. Um, I kind of thought music was made by other people. I don't know if they were humans.
Mm,
Seems,
mm,
and then I was in my early 40s. I'd fiddled around with harmonica, and one night it was, oh my God, blues harmonica. Just grabbed me and it changed me and
yeah.
sat on that. But that was late in life, and you had seemingly kind of a lot of clarity and a lot of, synchronicity going on. You end up in a band and touring around
Mhm.
and all that kind of stuff. Then was the trajectory after that? Did you then start teaching, or you had other bands, or what was next
Well,
for you?
I traveled with a few different bands, some well known, some not. And I did that for about 20 years.
Wow.
Uh, and I enjoyed myself immensely, but I always thought, what am I going to do when I get older? You know, I have to prepare myself and have some sort of security. And I thought about this very early. I said, I have to make sure that I have some sort of job. I'm not, I'm, I'm not too keen on being independent and worrying about when my next gig is coming. I was afraid of that. Um, and as it turns out, you know, I said, let me go back to school, finish my degree, and then I'll start teaching the thing I wanted to do from the beginning. And I had so many friends who are still out there working, same age as me, but still out there working. And I often wondered if it was a good choice for me. Should I still have been out there doing it, or should I have, gone back to school and finished my degree and did what I do what I did essentially. So I always had that question in the back of my mind. But the thing is, when you are a teacher, whether it's music or whatever, you have to have something to teach. And I think life experience is such a big part of that. So, usually teachers, you turn 21, you're finished with, your BA and you're ready to get in there and teach. But what are you teaching? It's so much more than just one academic subject or a musical subject or an art, any humanity. It's so much more than the actual subject itself. So I got my 20 years of life experience. I went back to school, I finished my degree, and then I started teaching when I was 40 something. And I felt like it was, for me, a better path because um, I had some life experience.
Yeah.
I had some background information. I had grown up. I had the fun when I was young. And now it was time to get serious and, find something that will sustain me. So that's why I went back. That's why I started teaching when I was a lot older. And initially, I loved it. It's a lot of work because it was elementary school.
Mhm.
And in New York City, they don't necessarily give you a curriculum. You kind of create your own. They have benchmarks. So there's a certain thing the second graders have to know by the end of second grade. There's a certain thing fifth graders have to know by the end of fifth grade. So you gear your curriculum toward those goals, but they don't tell you exactly how to teach. The reason being, everybody has their strong suit. Some people are musicians, but maybe they're instrumentalists. Some people are musicians, but maybe they're vocalists. Some are composers. Some are, I play tuba. I play, everybody comes from a different experience musically. So I think that's the reason they don't tell you exactly what to teach. They tell you that the child needs to know this by the time they hit third grade. And that's pretty much it. Or all of those benchmarks. So I had to really work hard to create my curriculum. Now, that doesn't happen overnight, it takes many years. And also to teach, to be a good teacher, which I felt like I was eventually, it doesn't happen overnight either. So the thing that was not too fabulous was that I was a vocalist, but I used my voice in such a way for at least 10, 15 years that was incorrect. So I damaged my voice and I wasn't able to sing like I had previously been able to. So for that, I regret teaching. For that, I regret because I said I lost the thing I was defined as is now gone. And then I said, well, I am much more than that. I said, I took some, sort of remedial classes in instruments. I said, and I'm drawn to certain things like I love drums, I love keyboard, I love bass, I love guitar. So why don't I just dig a little deeper into those? And I started a modern band at my school. And so I was teaching kids after school how to play guitar, drums, keyboard, bass, but to form a band, which was what my 20 years of life experience had been. So that's when I started to go, oh, this is cool. And things started to pay off. The things that I taught the kindergartners, like rhythms and things like that, which is the thing that we discussed. So that started me with my modern band. And from that, I was like, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. So then I still didn't have a voice, but I had enough of a voice so I could teach a child a song.
Yeah.
And it would be up to them listening, using their most important instrument, their ears, to hear what I was trying to do and for them to decipher it and then sing it back to me. So I did a lot of rote learning by listening. So that worked out really well. And from then on, it was so enjoyable. And the only reason I retired at this young age is because, oh my goodness, I was just tired. Just tired. It's a lot of work. Even if you have your developed curriculum, which now I could do in my sleep, because every grade is different. So, I enjoyed it immensely. And I enjoyed that it's not just about the music. It's about so much more. You're making, good people out of children. You're teaching them things that maybe they're not getting at home or in another classroom. So, they're very impressionable. And so the joy that I found at 16 is what I wanted them to find. So we listened to a lot of music that they normally would not listen to. I never played or taught them any songs that they might have already known, like simplistic little bingo or it's a bit. I never did stuff like that. because I said they're going to get that from somebody else, but not from me. So I would teach them songs with the intent of them understanding how that song was created, and how they can hear it and write it down and listen and figure things out on their own if they were given the tools. So I really enjoyed it immensely, and I do miss the extra stuff. Like, if they're just trying to understand being a good friend, or how you are a good listener. It's not just about the music. It's about having empathy for other people. It's about so much more. So that's the part that I miss, that sort of motherly, connection that you make, that we made with all of our students, those relationships that you build. And that's probably what I'll miss the most.
Yeah, I think this is along the lines of what I remember being so impressed about, just thinking, wow, you were teaching children from kindergarten through, I guess, eighth grade or ish, fifth grade,
Yeah.
um, and having them over and over to really give them one of the great gifts of being a human that a lot of people don't get that. You go to school and now the focus is on STEM and it doesn't really have the arts. And
Right.
we didn't have any in my Catholic school where we went. I mean, we had a nun who would blow a tune or
Yeah.
pitch pipe, and we'd sing some stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't really ever remember kind of a full-throated introduction, multifaceted,
Mm.
broad introduction to music and what it can do and the power that it can have for people. But it can be really powerful in people's lives, I think, when they get that kind of instruction. How did you see how music and the power of music, or the power of community and learning and vibration or whatever, really made a difference in these children's lives?
100%. In terms of community, I would do drum circles, and we would use our drum circles for conversations. So I would put the drums in the middle, in a circle, and then they would sit down. And, as a teacher, you have to have certain prompts so that you can keep the chaos down, but still keep kids excited and having fun.
Yeah.
So, if you don't want them to play, put your hands on your head, okay, now play this. Now, I didn't necessarily tell them what to play, but I wanted them to understand that music is a conversation. So the guitar player is talking to the bass player is talking to the drummer. That's what makes a cohesive unit. So in drums, when we had our circle, I would say, I would use an example and say, in Africa, they use, drums to say, this is when school is opening, blah, 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 and they would play a certain pattern. And then the kids would come to school is open. And then they would play a different pattern. And that meant it's time for lunch. And they would go to lunch. And they said, and when it was time to go home, did they play a pattern? And I said, no, they just went home. It was different. So I said, let's have our own conversation. So I would say, I'm going to have a conversation with this one person. The rest of you have to listen and see if you can figure out what we're trying to say. So we would play the drums in a certain way that maybe one loud boom would be no, or something. They would communicate. But the kids, especially the ones who were quiet, were the best, because they had a lot to say, just not verbally. And they didn't know how to say what they felt. So they used the drums. So I would just play, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be what we call good. It doesn't have to be rhythmic. It just has to be somebody banging on a drum. So I would bang, they would bang. I would bang, and then we would go back and forth. And then I would say, great, now your turn. And I would pick the next kid, and we would go back and forth. We would have a conversation. Everybody listened because they wanted to figure out what you were trying to say. And it didn't matter if they could figure it out or not. The point is they were listening with an intention. And then I would say, okay, everybody, ready? Play after me. And then everybody would repeat a pattern. Bah, 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 bah. We don't have to call it anything. I was telling you at Vic's camp that I studied Kodály. Kodály
Right.
is, Zoltàn Kodàly is a composer, but he also created this theory where children should learn music from their culture, folk music, and then use that music to understand musical concepts. So my favorite song was Lucy Locket. That was the first song I always did in kindergarten. And it was Lucy Locket lost her pocket, Kitty Fisher found it. Da, 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 da. So now let's clap the way the words go. Now let's da, 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 da. So we would learn just by learning that song. It was a game. And the kids wanted to do it because it was a game. They had to find and listen to who had something that I hid somewhere. And one child would walk close to it, and then we would sing that song louder. They'd walk further away from it. We'd sing that song softer. So it was a game to them. But what they're really getting is ti 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 ta. So they're getting rhythm. I don't call it what it's called yet. We just sing the song. They're also getting solfege. So, so, la, la, so, so, me, so, so, la, la, so, me. So they're getting pitch. They don't know they're getting that. They're just playing a game. I don't make them conscious of it until first grade. In first grade, I say, remember this song? Oh, that's Lucy Locket. And I remember, yeah. Can you sing this after me? So, me, so, me, so, la, so. They echo, and we learn by rote. And then I write it down, and I say, this is what it looks like. I put eighth notes, whatever. And then they clap the way the words go, because that's what rhythm is. And then we sing the pitches. Is this a higher than this? Is it a step higher? Is it a leap higher? Is it a jump higher? So there's certain words, music terminology, I want them to get used to, so that when we apply it to a music staff, they like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I already know that song. Yeah, that's Lucy Locket. See, so la la. So many things are predicated on that initial game. And that's how I start everything, just with a game, just for fun. The drum conversations continue, jumping off to another topic. And we also learn agol and ame, and that's also from Africa. Agol means, are you listening? And then they all respond with ame. That means, yes, we are listening. But after they say ame, they cannot speak again. They cannot even breathe. They have to.
A lot of teachers would really like to be
Oh,
able to utilize that.
you have to have those tools, like the hands on your head or whatever. Or if you can hear me, clap 2 times, and you say it very softly. If you can hear me, clap 6 times. That gets everybody quiet. Had I not known this and started doing it from day one, I might still be teaching, because I would still be able to sing. So little things like that they don't really teach you. When you're studying music pedagogy, they don't necessarily jump on classroom management, which I think is just terrible, because that's half the battle. Half the battle.
So by the time they were in 5th grade, they would have a pretty good, I mean, and I think this would be the kind of background in music Vic would think would be important, is kind of
Yeah.
a practical playing related kind of, I don't know, just musical knowledge.
Well, they're embodying
Embodying.
the rhythm and the pitch, and if it's inside, then you can put it out on anything if you already have it inside.
And they may go to 6th grade, or they may not get music or get music the same way, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that I would think that those kids would have some confidence and some skills listening, and think other skills that would really help them out
Yeah.
later on.
Yeah. Confidence is a big part of it, because it doesn't matter how great a musician you are. If you're afraid to get up there and do it in front of people, then nobody will know. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
But if you feel like, I know what I'm doing, I'll be okay. And then you just get up there and do it, you're okay. So we had I could tell in third grade if they've understood, because in third grade I give them an instrument. We start recorder in third grade. So we get the book, we say, oh, you guys know this rhythm. Let's sing the rhythm first. You guys already know these pitches. Let's say the pitches now. Now let's sing them together, whatever the order of things that we do. And then let's actually play it. But here are the rules. You have to blow softly, sit up straight, and let's really listen to each other. So that's a big part of it. And that's third grade. Fourth grade, we do more history. And I really do American music from Native Americans through slavery, through, we wind up at the Rapper's Delight, and they all rap the first popular rap tune. So the fourth grade is totally different. We also have opportunities to play some instruments. And then fifth grade, in fourth and fifth grade, we have a chorus and a modern band for fifth grade. So that's an after school thing. So there are ways to apply it. Eventually, we do apply it a little bit in younger grades because I play a lot of xylophones and boom whackers, and boom whackers are these.
So much fun. Can I
Yeah.
we have dudes start music for adults? Can you
Yeah.
start doing this for adults?
We have fun. We have fun. And you know what's so funny is they already like music before they come. So I always say my job is to make sure they still like it when they leave.
Yeah, I think all little kids are musical, as we saw
Yeah,
here at Vic's camp.
100%. Yeah.
And they can just kind of lose it. It kind of gets drummed out of you, if you will, because you're supposed to be quiet and you're supposed to be in this class and that class and
Yeah.
all those things. One of the things that you mentioned just struck me. You said you like to start out, or maybe this musician. How do you spell his name again?
Oh, Zoltàn is his first name. He's Hungarian, Zoltan, and Kodály is his last name. It's Kodaly.
And
And he is created a theory or a musical pedagogy that is vocal based, which is why I was drawn to him. There are several other music, pedagogies to study. Carl Orff was had a big program. And he did "Oh Fortuna," that guy. He also had a pedagogy, but it involved xylophones. So if you're an instrumentalist, you were drawn to that. There's another pedagogy called Dalcroze, and that's more of a movement thing. So that guy was into experiencing it physically, how you experience it. So there's different pedagogies. It depends on what you're drawn to, what you feel like you connect with.
The concept of starting off with something cultural
100%.
makes a lot of sense. I was reading this book, a friend told me about the silent pulse, where he kind of says, that different cultures are really sort of different vibrations.
100%.
And if you kind of learn that and learn that through history, as you were teaching Native American and coming up in ragtime or whatever else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're almost teaching about other people.
Yeah.
Through the music that represents their culture.
Right. And I think the fourth grade curriculum that I created for American music was so eye-opening to some kids. I mean, you live here and the kids are very young, so I don't expect them to know things, but they're in school to learn. But they don't know things about the states, their community. They start in kindergarten, you start with your community, like the policemen, the sanitation workers, the teachers, doctors, nurses, the guy who owns the bodega on the corner. That's your community. And then it broadens as each year gets, as you go up each year in elementary school. And then by fourth grade, I'm like, okay, let's get out of New York and let's visit the rest of the world, the rest of the country, not the world. And I purposely do that because we have a song, 50 Nifty United States. So they know all the states by the time they finish fourth grade. They can sing the song because it's a song. They know all of the continents because it's a song. They know so many things because of music, but it's not necessarily music related, but music can bring it to them. So there's a value in that. Middle school student came over to me a few months ago and said, "Oh my goodness, Miss Mealing, we miss coming to elementary school, and it was so awesome. And we want to thank you because we had a test in geography. It was about the states, and and we sang the song, and we got 100 on the test because we knew all the states." And I said, "Yeah, but where are they?" And they were like, "Oh, I remember Chef Mimal is Minnesota, Iowa, and Missouri, and Arkansas, and Louisiana, and Kentucky, and Frying Pan." And anyway, some little tricks that they learned, so they not only know the states, but where they are. What's right next to us? Why is it New England? Who's close to us? Why is it? So many things that they understood from our culture that they should know. But I always never let them forget whatever their culture is. We have many cultures in New York, especially in Brooklyn. In my school, we have 40 languages. So
Wow.
we learn songs in Spanish and English and whatever other language we could find. And I always tell them to celebrate their culture because that's what we are. The United States is a melting pot for a reason. And I try to instill that in them because a lot of the younger kids, when they come into school, they don't speak English. Their English is new to them. So I say, speak your language. We have Google Translate that all the teachers use so they can connect with the kids. But I want them to use their language. I want to hear it. And I don't want you to lose it because it's important. That's where your family, it's very important to your family that you're able to communicate with your family. But also, there are other people here too, other languages you can learn or, just appreciate and not be tolerant of. It's not about being tolerant, but it's about being part of a big community. And there are so many things that happen in that community. Let's just have a better understanding of who's here, why they're here, but also keeping our language because a lot of kids are nervous. They don't want to,
Yeah.
speak Russian in front of everybody. They don't want to speak Ukrainian. They don't want to speak Spanish in front of everybody or Chinese. Speak it. I want to learn. Please help me. How would I say good morning? And I always start like that because I don't want them to be embarrassed. I think their parents try to assimilate them so much into the culture, but what is the culture?
Yeah. Well, this is so inspiring because it just seems to me that you learn more and more as you go, and sure, it's good to have music education, and you don't have to try to be Taylor Swift. You can just
Right.
be able to play a song on a Friday night with friends or whatever. But this, what you're talking about is it's kind of a holistic education that is not just about that.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
broader. It's teaching listening and empathy and all these other things. I mentioned before that I usually ask some of these questions about, where did your music come from in your life, and what have you seen of the power of music? And you've just been talking about it. And the other one is, well, how can we tap into music to make a better world? And you're just answering this question. I think,
Mm.
we should have Penny's pedagogy. The world needs that in
Yeah.
a way because there's so many people who miss out on it, particularly in the focus that we have nowadays, and cutting back on the arts and music and all those things. So, I mean, thanks so much for what you're doing, but and I know you don't have plans for going on, but how do you see, how can the rest of us tap into this? How can other people tap into these kinds of things? How do we improve our society, with music and some of these thoughts that you've lived?
Well, first of all, I am retired, but I'm not done. I will be going back to school 1 day a week, and I'm going to do the modern band classes. But so that's joyful for me. But I think the thing that I'm doing now is I am listening more. I am listening because there's so much stuff right in our fingertips, right here. I listened to an interview with Alison Krauss and Rick Beato. She's fabulous. First, I've always loved her music. Her voice is stellar, and stuff like that that you just keep absorbing. If you keep Rick Beato is great. He does a lot of interviews with a lot of well-respected musicians, and if you just keep listening and keep learning, one of the big points of New York City Department of Arts Department, which encompasses dance and drama and music, and is we are lifelong learners. You don't just, I have to do my homework and okay, I'm done, let's go play. You're always learning, especially now. We have it at our fingertips. It's at our disposal. We could do anything. You don't have to pay for it. You could just, if there's something you want to learn, get it from your computer. It's so important to continue to be lifelong learners. You know what I just started a few weeks ago? Bass lessons. I'm taking bass lessons now. And it's something that I teach, but not to the extent that I'm taking it now. And I'm in an ukulele jam. I just got my new tenor ukulele and I found people to jam with. So that's something that I'm interested in. And it's up to you yourself to put yourself out there, to involve yourself in things. I also just found a bookload, 28 pages of my union, the United Federation of Teachers in New York City, has a retiree course book. So there are tons of things you can either continue learning or you can start learning. There's French classes and Spanish classes and cooking classes, things like that keep you in the flow. So I actually am learning more now that I'm not tethered, I guess you could say, to a day gig. And I'm just so enjoying it. So I think if we're, a lot of people talk lately about politics. And I said, I can't be involved in that conversation because I am going to be a creator. I am going to create beautiful things. And my art is going to do the talking. That's going to create beauty. So there's more beauty so that we have something else we can attach ourselves to besides what the rest of the world is doing. Not the rest of the world, but what a lot of people are doing. I cannot be part of it. I don't know enough about anything to give a valid opinion. Not valid. I guess they're all valid. But to give an opinion about something, I don't know enough about anything other than music and art and what I see and what I can create. So I think if we are just in that mindset where we are absorbing things that we might not otherwise have been privy to before, keep absorbing, keep learning, keep listening. That's really what it is. We have to listen. I think a lot of the political problems that there are is because people aren't listening. You might be surprised.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's, you have to listen. That's the first thing I tell my kindergartners, put your hands in your head and stop talking. Just listen. Just listen.
Yeah, if we could get the 330 million people in the United States to put their hands on their head and start listening, that would be good.
Yeah. Now, I can't tell you who to listen to.
Yeah. Well, maybe listen to yourself or whatever. There's plenty of things. Well, Penny, you're so inspiring. Thank you for everything that you've done. I'm sure there's a lot of kids now, adults who thank you as well. And I'm looking forward to hopefully continuing to hear what you're up to. And
absolutely.
Thanks for your insights, and I really appreciate your taking the time to talk today.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having this platform so I can spew.
Oh, no, it's really great. I really appreciate it. Maybe in the when we post this, we'll put the names of some of those. Maybe you could send me the names of some of those
sure.
teachers, so we'll have that in there.
Yeah. Great. No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you so much, Penny. Really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Jeff.
All
Thank
right.
you. Be well.